Hi everyone, I haven't been on Facebook Live for a while, well it seems like a long time, but it's been a busy time. So today I want to talk to you about mountaineering and recovery from chronic illness like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue or ME, and really about your health when you don't really know what's going on. So just last month in October 2018, I found myself climbing a mountain. We were on holiday in Crete and I'd planned on walking through some gorges, but my husband decided it was time for us to climb another mountain, and we ended up climbing the highest peak in Crete, Mount Ida. Now, I'm not a mountaineer. In the last 4 years, I've just climbed 2 mountains, and it just happens by itself, it seems, and usually there's a reason for it. So while I was climbing Mount Ida, I'd climbed Mount Snowdon 18 months after I'd recovered from fibromyalgia, arthritis and neuromas, and I had a reason for climbing that mountain, and that was to prove to myself that I had completely recovered, and the key thing was that I wouldn't go back to fibromyalgia symptoms again. There was a underlying little bit of fear that the symptoms could come back again, and climbing that mountain, it put that to bed for me. It put it to rest, it closed the door, and I felt kind of amazing, not having trained for the climb, but having come from a place where I could barely walk or move to climbing a mountain. It gave me a huge sense of achievement, and it gave me so much more than I actually had envisaged or thought it could. So how is climbing a mountain similar to recovering from chronic illness like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue? There's so many parallels. While I was climbing Mount Ida, it really reminded me of my recovery journey. It was almost like climbing the mountain to health. And there were so many parallels that I thought I really need to do this video. So the first one was my reason for climbing the mountain. Now, I hadn't intended to do it, as I said, but you know what? Sometimes we get really settled and comfortable in our lives, just not thinking about what we're doing, and we lose parts of ourselves. We lose the parts of ourselves that like a little bit of variety or a little bit of adventure, that part of us that likes new experiences. And we get settled into a life of routine, structure, being in control, you know, managing all those things that we juggle around us so that we feel okay. And by doing that, we lose a part of ourselves. We've kind of settled into a rut or a structure, a routine, and we stop thinking about all the things we want. So one of the reasons that I agreed to climb the mountain was to get out of my comfort zone, to get out of my routines, to give me another new experience. And you know what? It's when times are hard, when times are challenging, that we learn so much about ourselves. And for me, understanding myself, self-exploration, and you know, a curiosity about my potential as a human being has kind of always been there. And for a long time in my life, I kind of settled. I had routines, everything kind of ran smoothly, especially when the children were younger, and I needed to be in control of everything. But having been ill, it showed me that there were parts of me that really wanted new experiences, wanted variety, wanted change, as well as some routine. So it's all about balance. So part of my reason for climbing the mountain was to find out more about myself. Because in our settled life, in our comfort zone, in our routines and habits, we don't learn about ourselves. you know, when you think about the challenges that you've had in your life and what you learned and what you gained, yes, it was hard, but there's always something you gain. So that was my long-term goal for climbing the mountain, was just to find out more about who I am and how far I've come from the person I used to be when I had fibromyalgia. And it was a huge way, really. So the first thing I learnt was that I've become so much more of an observer in my life. So when I was struggling, and I did, I really did, I thought it would be much easier than it was. I really was struggling. I was able to just stop and notice my thoughts. There was much more awareness than I've ever had before. I was able to listen to my thoughts almost from a distance, just to observe and notice them, that it was just getting too hard. Did I really want to do it? I couldn't see the summit. I couldn't see the end point. It seemed too far and it seemed too hard. And I observed those. And then because I observed them, I was able to connect to my long-term goal. So how does this relate to health and illness? Well, sometimes that goal of health, that goal of that vision of you being healthy, full of vitality and resilience and energy, that seems a very long way away. And we can fall into our symptoms. I did fall on the mountain. I did have a few slips, and I could have fallen into that and said, right, no, I'm not going any further. And often I find my clients and the people I work with, they fall into their symptoms, just focusing back on their symptoms. And if you can't observe your thoughts and then connect to what you really want, the long-term goal, what your aim is, what you're doing everything for, you can stay in that hole, you can stay down for a lot longer than you need to. So the first point is observe your thoughts and have that awareness of what you're thinking, because that gives you a choice point. I had a choice point and I made it conscious because I was aware of what I was thinking. I made that choice point conscious. And what that meant was that I could make a choice. I could make a decision. I could decide whether I wanted to go forward and keep going for my long-term goal, or I could just stop and turn back. And just by connecting to what I really wanted, I wanted to learn about myself when it was hard. I wanted to learn about myself when I had a challenge. And so I was able to connect to that, and that kept me going. That gave me an extra determination. That gave me an extra way forward, because it also showed me that those negative thoughts were just my fears of what if I couldn't do it? What if I couldn't make it? And I chose not to listen because I chose to change my focus. So that's point 2. Change your focus. Change your focus. Use that choice point to change your focus to what you can do now. So I chose, and I decided that rather than focusing on something that I thought was too far, too hard, but knowing why I wanted it, I chose to focus on what I could do. And all I could do in that moment was take the next step. And then the next step. I focused on what I could do. And that really reminded me of my recovery too, because when I was in pain and when I was struggling to do anything, and sometimes this pain would just bring me to tears, all I focused on, I put all my energy on my breathing, on my breath, and to breathe through it and to tell myself that it will pass. And that's how I coped with it. So I focused on what I could do, even though I didn't know it at the time. I made that choice point conscious, and I decided that at this moment, in this time, all I could do was breathe and tell myself it will pass. And it always did. And the more I did that, the more evidence I got. So come to awareness of your thoughts. They can take over and they can take you into that spiral of negativity. Or with that awareness, you can come to that choice point and you can then make it conscious. Now, the reason this works is because when we go into stress, when we go into strong emotions, it almost takes our brain, that frontal part of our brain, our frontal lobes, it takes it offline because the blood's going elsewhere in our body. And by making a conscious decision, you're actually bringing it back online to a certain extent. So that's why it works, because you can't think straight when you're in stress. And that's the reason it's really important. So that's a parallel to a journey to recovery. Now, some points in my mountain climbing, I couldn't see the path ahead. I just didn't know which way to go. And again, I could let that, that thought take over. And I could go into it, attach to it, and allow the stress to increase. And I decided if there were people climbing it, there was a way. There is definitely a way. So that's the third point I want to talk about. If a single person can recover from these conditions, then there is a way. And it's your choice, again, to choose whether you choose that thought, there is a way, and I will find my path with each step. Or whether you decide there isn't a path, you don't know how to do it, and you can't do it. Now, the fourth point is that when you're up a mountain, it's just you and you. It's just you and the mountain. There's nowhere to hide. Even if there's people around you encouraging you, motivating you, it comes down to your choice. It comes down to your motivation, your why, and there's nowhere to hide. So these are the driving forces. When you're in a chronic illness, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, there's nowhere to hide. Your symptoms are right there. There is absolutely nowhere to hide. And so it's another parallel that really reminded me of how I got through my fibromyalgia. I knew what I wanted 100%, and focusing on my why and the next step and making a conscious choice, they all helped me when things were hard. So, and things do get hard, just as they did climbing up a mountain. I had a fall, my daughter had a fall, we slipped and tripped a few times, the rocks were loose, but you know what, we kept getting up. We just kept getting up. We supported each other and we kept getting up. So sometimes this journey, this is really hard to do by yourself. Because being in these illnesses, it's isolating. As I said, it's just you with you. It's you and your symptoms. It's very isolating. And I remember very well how that feels. So sometimes we do need that extra support, that extra hand, that extra word, that extra bit of encouragement. And it's okay to ask for that help. There's nothing weak. Actually, I think it's very courageous. I think it's very brave to say, I need help with this. I can't do this by myself. So I just wanted you to look at that needing help and needing support, maybe just needing a hand up, as something not weak, not a failure, because so many of us think that, but actually something really courageous and brave, because you're being vulnerable, you're putting it out there, and it's something that can be shared and should be shared so that more people can actually get that support. So there's lots of things there that were really paralleled and really showed me and reflected my the mountain I climbed to recovery from fibromyalgia. It was really eerily parallel, and really made me reflect on everything I'd been through. So on this journey, I learned so much about myself. It was understanding my strengths, my weaknesses. It was being open and vulnerable when I needed the hand up and when I needed encouragement. And all those things are so key. They really do make a huge difference, and really connecting to why I was doing it. So your journey, if you're struggling with chronic illness, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, ME, you know what? The journey, the adventure is for you to find out more about yourself so that you can change what's not true, what's not right, what's not working for you. It really is all about you. And the top of the journey, the summit, even if you can't see it when you're at the bottom, even if you can't see it when you're halfway up the mountain, even I was so close and I still couldn't see the summit, and I could still have stopped. But keep hold of your why, keep hold of what you really want, your aim, your goal. It's not about the short term. It's not about releasing your symptoms. That's not the only thing that your illness is there for. It's about you understanding yourself and who you can be when you're healthy and happy, and what you really want from your life, what's really important to you, what you really value. So that's what this journey is about. That's what that mountain is about. And sometimes you can't see your path. All you can do is take the next step. Sometimes you can't see that end point, that summit, and all you can do is take the next step. So my message for you is keep taking that next step. Just keep taking that next step. Keep focusing, observing your thoughts, observing yourself, and focusing on what you can do and why you're doing it. So reaching the summit was a huge relief, and it was quite a spiritual connection for me. It gave me a completely different perspective. When you're up there, what I felt was there's so much more above me. There was clouds and layers and layers. It was quite magical. And there was so much more I didn't know, but I felt okay with it. I felt at peace with it. As I looked down at the beauty around me and how far I'd come, there was this real sense of peace. And that's what I think recovering from any of these illnesses, from any chronic pain or illness, it gives you some peace. I had this real deep feeling that everything's just as it should be and it's all going to be okay. So those are my messages for you if you're climbing your mountain of illness, that it is possible. There are others who have gone before and done it, that you will learn about yourself. You will find, you will dig deep. You really sometimes have to dig deep, but you never lose that courage you find, that strength, that determination, that resilience. You never lose that. Something stays within you. And the tools that I used were really simple. The tools I used to get me through that mountain climb, up and then down. Down was just as hard as up. Were really simple. I used my breath to bring in more oxygen and calm me down when I was observing that I was getting into stress. I smiled to reduce the pain in my legs and my feet. That reduced dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. So I'd learnt that about myself, and I used those tools that I had. The tools I used were so simple, and then connecting to why I was doing it, to find out more about myself. So you've got these tools are with you all the time, and becoming an observer of your thoughts. We don't have to attach to them, we do have a choice, and giving ourselves a choice and making a conscious choice. So when you're in stress, you fall back into old stress patterns. But when you make that conscious choice point, you're shifting that. So I came back really proud of myself, feeling like I've achieved something that I had never set out to do in the first place, but with a deeper peace, a clearer confidence and trust in myself and my knowing and who I am becoming as a person. And that is huge, because I'm taking new steps in my work, in my business, and I think the mountains always come to me as something to do when I'm doing new things in my life, when I'm having new experiences and stepping out of my comfort zone. So watch this space for new things that will be happening very, very soon. And what I really hope that you've got from this video is that you can do it. Others have done it before you. Focus on what you can do. Observe your thoughts. Gain greater understanding and awareness of yourself. And you will reach the summit of where you want to reach. So I hope you found that helpful. Please comment below if it resonated, if any part of this video resonated with you, and what you got from it, because it's really wonderful for you to focus on what you're getting from your recovery journey. The more meaning in your life, the little gifts along the way that we can miss when we've got symptoms. So please comment, please like if you found this helpful, and you can find me at www.centrebalance.co.uk. And I really hope that whatever your journey is up that mountain, that you reach the summit and feel what you need to feel when you're there. I already know it's possible, and I can hold that, and I hold that for my clients. I know how it feels, and I want you to feel that too. So hope you found this helpful. Have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you soon.